So why is due diligence so important? Because you need to know exactly what it is that you're buying before you purchase it, especially when you're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars on a transaction. You want to really check out the property and know everything about it, the expenses, the expected capital expenditures you're going to have to do, whether the rent roll is accurate, whether the lease contracts have anything unusual in them. You want to know all of this up front so that you know exactly what it is that you're purchasing. If you're buying a car for $20,000-$30,000, of course you want it checked out. You want to make sure that all the parts work, etc. On a self-storage facility, which is worth hundreds of times more than a typical car is worth, you really need to take the time and go into the effort of making sure it's all done properly, and that includes having an expert visit the site and check it out, because you want to see, are there some doors that are going to need to be replaced? How are you going to increase the curb appeal? Is there some capital expenditure you need to do to get the property up to speed? So that's why this process is very, very important. And some buyers, rush it or don't quite go through everything, but that could really come back and bite you, because any mistake here is potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars in cost to you after you've signed the contract. So you want to know about everything before you sign the final closing contracts. You can still then renegotiate the property. You can walk away from the deal. You have options. But if you find out something that's unexpected after, it's then out of your pocket that it comes, instead of saving that money by preventing it up front. Okay, so let's walk through the due diligence process. If you do it properly, it reduces the chance of you losing money and actually increases that you're going to make money. Why? Because you may find there's some expenses there that are too high. You may find that if you add a security gate, do some painting, fix 10 units that have been broken, you can boost your revenue too. So it's important before you purchase the property, but then again, after you've actually taken physical ownership of the property, you want to run through this process again, because now you actually have access to everything. You want to go through and make sure that it is all up to date too. Why does everyone not do it properly? Sometimes they don't know all the steps to do. They haven't done a course, they haven't followed someone else. They're just kind of doing it, winging it basically, without having any proper manual or instructions on exactly what to check. And some people are just lazy. It's a lot of work to verify everything to do with a property. Go through all the unit mixes, the leases, the rent rolls, and check the actual income and expenses against the bank statement. It takes time. So some people just skimp on it because they don't have the time, even not just being lazy. We're all busy nowadays. Maybe they just don't have the time to simply go through and do everything, and so they can miss some stuff too. So what are the key steps really? First, you've got to have a checklist, and we provide one with this course. It's included, and basically that checklist, you want to get to the seller straight away. You want to ask them to provide you all of the information that you need there and collect it from the seller. And they may need some time to get it, but you have to be a little bit pushy, because your due diligence window may be 30, 60 or 90 days, and you want to make sure that everything's done sooner rather than later, because then you've got time to go back to them with questions and request more documents if you need it too. If you wait until the last minute to do it, just like a college project, do it all the day before, then there's no back and forth time for you to clarify some things before finalizing things. So allow at least 30 days to review all the due diligence documents, and then, as I said just now, review them sooner rather than later, so that you can absolutely find any issues and clarify those. So what are some of the key documents? Okay, so we're going to run through the checklist, so we'll have that for you as well, so you understand exactly what you need to check. But the main things are, of course, the rent roll, the unit mix, and you want to match those up, right? So if you've got 50 10 by 10s that are supposedly leased out, you want to double check that against the rent roll, and that the unit mix and the rent roll documents, and then the financials from the bank, and everything ties up and matches up together. And sometimes that's difficult to do. Things are kind of a bit all over the place, but if the seller has been doing a reasonable job of keeping the accounting up to date, with the financials, the month-to-month accounting, and any property management reports that they have, you should be able to tally up and match up everything. If something's off, then it indicates something else is a problem there. It could be that the numbers are really off and they don't match up, or there could be something happening, for example, a manager taking cash payments instead. It could be an underlying issue that you need to kind of dig into and look at. If all the numbers match up across everything, then it's pretty likely that they're accurate numbers. But still, the seller could be overpaying for things in the expenses. Still, the seller might be undercharging for rent and not leasing out all the units that they could be leasing out. So the due diligence is just to verify the information there, but in the back of your mind, you want to be thinking, how can I cut costs and increase revenues with this information from the due diligence? Because that's where you're going to make your money, right? So the due diligence is one about verifying everything, but you're also looking for the gaps, the value add here, and then maybe a lot. You know, you may have found that if they've got 20 units that have broken doors, they haven't bothered to spend the money to replace them. If you replace those 20 doors, boom, you can lease those units out and your revenue goes up, for example. You know, you never know what you're going to find, and that's why this process is so important, because you could uncover some real gems too. You could find that they haven't been collecting all the rents the proper way they should be from some of the tenants. You could find that they're way below market rents as well. So there's a lot that you can pull out of it. So financials, profit and loss, income statements, utility bills, property tax, and as so many properties now use property management software, you want to request those documents too. So the management documents, so you can have a quick scan through the occupancy over time too. Insurance documents, any surveys, environmental reports, leases, titles, permits, rent increase history, the contractors info, so anyone that's done any contract work on the site, all the employees info, contracts and contact details, and then any other existing contracts or leases on the property. So you want to gather all of this information in, and then it's a process of reviewing it. And really what you're looking for are two things: ways you can improve the asset so that you can benefit more out of the value of it. And the second, of course, is then any red flags that you really need to kind of either negotiate or will make you walk away from the deal too. Some of the things to watch out for: leases missing for some of the tenants. They've never signed a lease. You know, they could be paying every month, but there's no actual physical lease in place. So this may be something that needs to be rectified prior to closing, post closing. Either way, you want to be aware of it up front, of course. Sometimes you have unexpected clauses in contracts. That could be the leases, you know, overly low price for an overly long time, for example. Maybe the contractors, you know, they're locked in for 3 years and they're paying them too much. Maybe some of the employees have special contracts. Maybe there's something in the insurance that you need to be aware of. So it's really a case of reading through the documents and trying to spot things that may snag you in the future. And that's not easy to do at the start. You know, we're talking insurance documents, legal documents, contracts with suppliers. It's not something that if you've never done this before, that's easy. So take the time to review these documents and go through it, or find a company that can help you on the due diligence process and go through it with you so you learn. Because as an owner, even if you're not doing the job, you do need to know every aspect of the business so that you can do the job better in the future too, or at least guide someone to do the job better in the future. Sometimes another big thing is that the income expenses don't match the bank statements, and that's a big one, and that we need to be investigated until you know exactly what the financial position of the business is. And we are, self-storage is a business, it is as well as a property. You know, you've got an active business on site, and that's what generates the value. The utility contracts, and then sometimes, you know, the biggest issue that we have is sometimes the seller is very slow to give the documents to us, or they just simply don't have everything. They don't have complete records. Again, you're going to have to make a judgment call as to whether you have enough information to go ahead with the deal or not. In that case, you just have to see, depending on what exactly they have and what is missing. But of course, the main financials and unit mix, etc., they should have that information readily available because they need to file taxes, etc. So due diligence doesn't stop, you know, once you've done it once. Again, as soon as you get the keys to the kingdom, to the property, you want to re-verify everything. You want to make sure the leases are updated. Maybe you plan on doing a rent increase straight after you take over. So you want to get that notification out, the updated lease amounts ready, and make sure that that's all up to date. You want to keep monitoring the income and expenses closely to make sure that they're matching what you basically had prior to taking over the property. And again, you should always be thinking, how can I cut a bit of cost here without affecting the quality of my service or the facility, but maybe you're overpaying for some certain services and utilities, etc. And the other thing you should always be thinking is, how can I use this information to add value to my facility? Because every dollar you add in revenue basically, or NOI, basically creates $15 in actual value of the property, at least. So try to reduce the costs, and cut costs on old utilities, old contracts. And the other thing you need to check out once you've taken over the asset again is, even if you've done a site visit before, there could be some underlying issues with some of the property that you need to keep an eye out for. And the main ones tend to be things like door issues, lock issues, or even just simple things like it needing a paint job and updating. The other key part of due diligence is, of course, getting your different reports, third-party reports that you need to pull together. And what we've been finding recently is these can be taking up to 45-60 days. So in your letter of intent, and when you enter into due diligence, you want to allow that extra 60 days, plus have the option to extend another 30 days if necessary, in case some of these reports do take a little bit longer to pull together. And the ones that you're looking for is an appraisal. So a licensed professional tells you what the value of the property is. Especially if you're going for financing, the bank will often have their own appraiser. So speak with the bank first that you're looking to finance your deal, your property with. Find out from them exactly who you should be using to appraise the property, because they might need that too before they can sign off on the closing too. Then you've got a survey. So it basically shows you the boundary, the improvements of the property you're buying. It just drills into the property itself. And then you have the phase 1 environmental report, and then that tells you basically if there's any environmental issues. A lot of storage is built in converted properties. Maybe before it was a warehouse storing oil, and now there's oil in the ground. That could be a big issue. Could be that there's a petrol station next door, gasoline station, gas station next door, and then that could be an issue too, because some of the contaminants may have leaked across into your property as well, and that could be an issue in the future if you're looking to sell, because if it comes up as an issue for you, then it may come up as an issue for a buyer as well. So you really need to dig in and check those reports and make sure there's nothing there that you need to mediate or fix. And if it's too bad, for example, environmental issues or potentially oil spills, etc., causing ground issues, then you can walk away from the deal. You really need to make a judgment call on that depending on the seriousness of any issues that you find. Why should you audit your facility annually? Basically, you need to look at it as if you are buying your facility, and as an owner, you're busy day to day, right? You've got 100 other things to do. You've got your life, your family. You may be doing real estate part-time, and you might be doing another job full-time. You may be full-time in real estate. The reality is, though, over a course of a few months, there may be some gaps in your financials. There may be some, problems with the way the facility is being run, etc. So you need to step back and go through this whole due diligence process from scratch, and make a plan for the following year for the property. It helps you. If you look at the property and you look at potential capital expenditures you need to do, you can budget for that, etc. The other thing is, you may find that going through this process, it gives you ideas on how to boost the revenue, or it gives you ideas on how to cut some of the costs. Maybe you were too busy day to day before to properly review the management reports, but now you can finally sit down and go through everything. You can see what the trends are, what the data is showing you too. So due diligence, we're going to provide a checklist for you. We're going to cover the checklist in another video as well, but remember, it's really a case of verifying everything to do with the property now, how it is now, and what you're being handed for that price. But at the end of the day, we're always trying to think how to improve the income, reduce expenses. We want to see what can we make this property. It's like me, I'm overweight now. I've got to imagine how I'm going to look after 6 months in the gym, what's going to change, etc. So I take my weight now, which is the due diligence, to know the current picture, but we want to know whether from the due diligence will show us, what the future could look like. Are there expenses in there that shouldn't be there? Have they been underreporting their income? We've had that in the past where, properties, we've agreed a price based on this valuation and then found that there's more income actually than what we agreed the price based on. There could be positives that come out of the due diligence, but really you are looking for those big red flags too that could cost you potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars down the road, because anytime you can prevent one mistake before it happens, you've basically saved yourself a lot of time, headache, and money too. Thank you.
For more information on commercial real estate investing, go to patriotholdings.com. Thanks for listening.